3rd to August 4th, 1991. It must have been a span of 12 to 13 hours I was with Fernando. And I told him what we did that night, where we went, where we ate, where we stopped, where we went to, how many women we spoke to that night. And I could just see that they were frustrated at me, that they thought I must have telling lies. But I consistently told them that I was telling the truth, that I had nothing to do with this. Fernando had nothing to do with this. I was with him the whole time, and I never left him out of my sight. And they were just attacking me like if I had a part in the murder. They were telling me things that I couldn't believe. And I felt very frustrated at them because I thought if by me just going down there to tell the truth, they were going to believe this and set Fernando free. But it didn't come down to that. They just said, take a written statement down, and that's all we needed from you at this time. And if they needed me for anything else, they would get in contact with me.
The prosecutor just asked me repeated questions, trying to switch them around. I don't know for what reason, trying to like, in a way, play with my head, asking me questions in a way almost to trick me. And I don't understand why he was doing that, because I gave him straightforward answers and I knew where I was that night, and he still didn't believe me. He even pounded on the table and told me that I would be sentenced to 15 to life if I didn't cooperate with him. When I was arrested, and after I gave my detailed account of where I was that night, who I was with and what I did, I was then told, in order to call my lawyer or my mother, that I had to participate in a lineup. And I participated in a lineup also because I felt I had nothing to hide, and I felt that as soon as I acquiesced to all the requests that they had, that shortly this would be over with.
This man was with Raymond Blunt that night.
Altercations brewed and somebody ran across the street and shot my friend Raymond.
What did he look like?
He was a little bit taller than myself, Hispanic, about 150 pounds.
To close the case, police rushed to get Bermudez into a lineup, but instead of having the 210-pound Bermudez stand, police seated all the suspects.
To disguise my height, because had I been probably standing, they would have seen that they were definitely mistaken.
Did Fernando ever stand up? No, he didn't.
And then there was the lineup. Now, many are done in rooms like these. The subjects stand across, so the witnesses can identify them through the one-way mirror. But in this case, the subjects were seated, and that could have caused real confusion among the witnesses because there was a discrepancy about the height of the shooter.
He looked very similar, at least facially, to Wulu.
Similar except for his size. The witnesses said the shooter was 5'9", 150 pounds. Bermudez was much bigger, 6'2", 230. You can't tell that from a photo. And the lineup was done with suspects sitting down.
And I was told to sit down and pick a number and sit down with a bunch of police cadets who also held numbers.
The star witness for the prosecution was Efren Lopez. When the fight broke out the night of the murder, Lopez was at the center of the melee. Witnesses said that Lopez pointed out the victim, Ray Blount, to whoever fired the shots. This led police to conclude that Lopez knew the shooter.
Yeah, I seen him go when he pulled it out.
He was taken to a nearby precinct and questioned for 27 hours before the police videotaped his statement.
Assistant District Attorney James Rodriguez did not turn over an exculpatory tape that he should have turned over. Firstly, he should have turned it over at the very beginning, soon after the arrest of Fernando Bermudez, because a motion had been made an omnibus motion had been made by the defense attorney asking for Rosario material and Brady material and statements and identifications, and asking for all of this material to be turned over, and it was not. Then at the Wade hearing, this tape was not turned over. No one knew it existed except the prosecutor.
My name is James Rodriguez. I'm an assistant DA in New York County, and with me also present is Detective Daniel Massanova from the 6th Precinct Squad.
That information was not turned over until the eve of trial. That would have helped the defendant plan his defense. that would have exonerated him. He would have had time to investigate where the shooter lived, who the shooter was. You have to show the tape slowly. You have to study the tape, and all the truths will become very, very clear.
What is your first name and last name?
Efren Lopez.
And are you known by any nicknames?
Pito.
Pito?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's whistle in Spanish.
Okay, are you known by the nickname Shorty?
No, it's Pito. It's somebody who don't know me, they'll call me Shorty because I'm small, but my name is Pito.
Have people called you Shorty in the past?
Yeah, because of people who I already know, but once I get to know them, my name is Pito. That's my nickname.
How old are you?
16.
Where do you live? In Manhattan?
Yeah.
How long have you lived there?
For like 3 years.
Who do you live there with?
My mother.
Do you go to school?
No, I was registered this September.
What are you doing now?
Nothing.
Just hanging out?
Yeah.
And where do you hang out? What do you do there?
Play handball, basketball, baseball.
Well, the prosecutor has never turned over the tape without the redaction. I mean, filling in the spots. He has never turned over the full Rosario statement.
You ever go down to the Mark ballroom?
Yeah.
How many times you been there?
Saturday was my first day I ever went there.
Who'd you go there with?
A friend of mine, Anthony.
What's his last name?
I don't know his last name.
Where do you know Anthony from?
From 90th Street.
What time did you get to the Mark ballroom?
Probably got there about 12 or close to 1.
How old are you?
16.
What's your date of birth?
9/3/74.
Okay. And you're 16.
Yeah.
Who knew the club?
Anthony, because they had flyers for the club. It was called Romper Room.
Why'd you go down there?
Because I just came out that Saturday, so I wanted to go to a party.
Came out from where?
From work release. That was my pass on Saturday to Wednesday. And that's when he asked me if I want to go to Romper Room, and I said yeah.
So what else did he say to you?
And that was it.
Then he knew you from Rikers?
Yeah, that's what he was telling his friend about Rikers. That's when I said, do you know me? Because I was in Rikers Island, and I got jumped in Rikers Island. So I approached him and said, do you know me? So he probably took it wrong by the way I said it, but I came, snotty, and that's when he hit me. And I swung back at him and his friend, and that's when he punched me on the side of my mouth right here.
And who were you with?
Who was I with?
Yeah.
With Anthony.
Anthony saw this?
Yeah, when the second guy hit me, that's when he pushed me away. Because when one guy hit me, he didn't do nothing, because I was fighting him, and when the other guy hit me, that's when he pushed us away, and then the guys that was working there, they brought both of us upstairs.
Where did Anthony live?
On 90th Street.
What's the building number?
He lives in one of the projects, because he hangs out on 92nd behind my grandma's building.
What's his telephone number?
I don't have his number. That's when they broke it up. And they took us upstairs. And the two guys that was up there, they had bats that work in the place. And they was talking about they don't want no more problems over there to squash. I know that. I didn't say nothing to him, or I didn't say nothing to the kid. I just went back downstairs. When I went downstairs, I called my grandmother. I told my grandmother what happened. This was probably like 2:30. I called my grandmother. And then when I started talking to my grandmother, I went back in.
Why did you call your grandmother?
Because I told my grandmother everything, so in case something happened, she knew where I was at.
I mean, weren't you going to go home that night?
Yeah.
So couldn't it wait until you got home?
I just called her to explain to her what happened. In case something happened to me, she knew where I was at.
Well, you knew somebody was going to shoot the guy who punched you, right? That's what you want her to know.
No, I was just explaining to her what happened. The guys that was there, I didn't even see him yet. That's when when I went back inside, that's when I seen him. And I approached him, I was like, yo, what's up? And he was like, what happened? I said, I had a fight with this kid, and he didn't say nothing after that.
Wait a minute. When's the first time you saw this guy who came up and asked you what happened? Was he inside or outside?
He was inside.
And was he by himself when he asked you what happened?
He was by himself at that time.
And then what happened?
And then I approached him, and I was like, what's up? I see him around my way, And I approached him, and I was like, what's up? And then he see mine, he was like, what happened? I said, I had a fight. But then he didn't say nothing. And like 2 minutes after that, there was a gunshot in there. And that's when everybody started running up. Once everybody started running up, I was outside, and that's when he came. And then, everybody started coming out, so the kid came out with a crowd, a couple of his friends.
Which kid? The one who punched you?
Yeah, he came out with
There was two guys who punched you. Or was it the same guy punched you twice?
No, two guys punched me. I didn't see the other guy.